Welcome to Roaming with Restless Women, real talk with wise, dynamic women leaders. I'm Julie Noonan, your host, CEO, and founder of Intuitive Wisdom Coaching, and I'm living my dream life. I live and work in my RV, coaching senior women leaders as they navigate corporate politics, family drama, and personal goals to live their own dream lives. These women are restless. They are never done seeking new opportunities, learning, and ways to create value in the world. If you'd like to apply to be a guest, stick around to the end of the show and I'll let you know how. So let's go. Here we go. Welcome to today's edition of Roaming with Restless Women, real talk with wise, dynamic women leaders. Today, I have Joelle Kaufmann. Joelle is a seasoned go-to-market executive. She served as a CMO and CRO for companies including Bloomreach, Addify, and Workboard. She's led category creation and revenue growth strategies for multiple startups and guided numerous teams through periods of significant change and uncertainty. My line of business, change management. Joelle developed her Curveball method, which equips leaders to transform unexpected challenges into opportunities through 25 years of navigating high-stakes business challenges and also navigating through breast cancer. Joelle says, personally, being a 40-year generational breast cancer survivor at 54 fundamentally changed my perspective on life. It taught me that every day is a gift and that resilience isn't just about bouncing back and growing through adversity. This experience has infused everything I do with a sense of urgency and purpose. I don't just want to succeed, I want to make a meaningful impact and help others to do the same. So welcome, Joelle.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Sounds like you've been through a lot in your life and a lot of wisdom to share. Yeah.
Who hasn't?
That is for sure. That's what life is all about. So
Yeah.
let's start with a little background. Can you just share a little bit about your career journey so far?
Sure. So little known fact is I wanted to be in entertainment. And so when I went to business school, I was like, I want to tell better stories because I honestly felt this was the early 90s. I felt like the stories about women were really narrow. It was kind of Murphy Brown was it.
Pretty
And
much.
she was great, but Mary Tyler Moore and Murphy Brown were it. There were no married women. There were no women with different sexuality. I mean, there was just nothing. I mean, Orange is the New Black was 20 years away, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I thought, let's get into entertainment and tell better stories. And then I went to work in entertainment for a summer and said, wow, what I'm good at, business and marketing and mobilizing people, that's actually not what drives the entertainment industry. It's what monetizes it. But I'm not really a production assistant.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
isn't where I
man.
want to go at this point in my life. And so I wound up saying, but I love stories and I love books. And I found a startup that was building technology in an arena about how do you recommend books to people based on what they already like.
Oh,
And now we take that for granted, right? You see that in any online bookstore. But in 1995, that didn't exist.
no.
Amazon was a little company up in Seattle. Barnes and Noble was the big dog. And I fell into tech and I did a big deal with Barnes and Noble and I built the first book recommendations engine on the internet. And
Wow.
yeah. Now, I didn't build it. Let me be clear. A bunch of engineers built it. I did the deal and I did the project management, but these hands don't code.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Uh, and I really liked what technology could do for consumers and for businesses. I felt that we were on the precipice of something transformational, and clearly we were. I mean, look at us right now. You're in an RV doing a Zoom podcast with me in California from North Carolina. I mean, that just wasn't possible.
Right.
Right. And so I got into tech. I did product management. I did account management, customer success. I did business development and sales. And then I landed as the head of marketing. Interesting for the women who listen to your podcast, the job I got heading marketing, one, I had never had a job in marketing.
Wow.
And two, I was 7 months pregnant. So kudos to that CEO, because there's no hiding that you're 7 months pregnant,
No.
especially when you're 5'2" like me and you're hugely pregnant. Um, I did have some special experiences and skills that made me a very attractive candidate for that job. And that job was my first head of marketing. And from there, I spent the next 20 years as a head of marketing, usually doing marketing and sales, marketing and product, marketing and biz dev, marketing. And the reason is the way I do marketing is I do business using marketing strategies, right?
Uh-huh.
My focus is how do we drive revenue, growth, and delight customers? But the thing you find out when you are building high growth companies, but I think this applies to everybody, is curveballs are constant. Like the mistake is to actually think you're not going to see them, because you're going to
Mm-hmm.
see them every day. It could be a big customer is upset. It could be a deal falls through. It could be a product is late, or it could be one of your people on your team suddenly has a sick parent
Yeah.
or a child in trouble, or they have an illness, or you do. But curveballs are constant.
Yes.
Once you accept that curveballs are constant, it stands to reason that you'd want to have an approach for curveballs. Now, I don't know if any of your listeners or viewers or you are baseball fans. I wasn't. And then I
Mm-hmm.
gave birth to a baseball fanatic who's a gifted player, right? So I have now watched more baseball than I ever intended to in my entire life. But one of the things, and my son is a outfielder hitter, right? So one of the things he talk about a lot is I have to fix my approach. I said, what do you mean?
Yeah.
He's like, what is an approach? And we ended up having a really rich conversation about what is an approach. And when we did so, and I'll explain it, the applicability to my business life and to my cancer journey was immediate. So an approach actually happens before you step up to the plate. It is thinking about, what do I want to do at this at bat?
Mm-hmm.
What do I think is going to come? And what am I looking for? What am I going to change if I don't see what I'm looking for and I see something else? How do I use my particular gifts and strengths to succeed in this at bat? So it becomes focus. What do I see and where do I want to go? Knowing your strengths. Everybody's got strengths. Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
got weaknesses, but everyone's got strengths. Knowing what they are allows you to harness them. Your
Yep.
resources. So in baseball, your resources are your bat, how your stance. But in life or in business, your resources can be money, people, time, relationships. You have resources and you have a mindset. And this is actually the most important part. If you don't expect a curveball and you see one, you can be off balance,
Yes.
right? And that's okay. Forgive yourself. A little self-compassion is okay here. But curveballs are always moving slower than they appear. So
Mm.
that moment that you're off balance is a moment to take a quick breath, reset, and really look at that curveball. You can
Mm-hmm.
do that as a team because business is a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that when you're facing cancer because, with a couple of exceptions, and there are exceptions, most of the time with cancer, you don't go from you were diagnosed on Monday and you're in treatment on Tuesday. Now, if you have leukemia, like
Mm.
that, leukemia is the exception from my understanding. I'm not an oncologist, but if you don't have leukemia, you're likely going to have a bunch of tests and scans. And I had a very aggressive, my family's cancer, which the first time when my mother was diagnosed, I was 13.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
my mother is a 77-year-old goddess.
Oh
So,
wow.
okay. So, yes, it was a curveball, But here's the thing about curveballs. You can hit home runs off curveballs. You don't always have to foul or get out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so my mother's cancer, my sister's cancer, my cancer, they were all very aggressive breast cancers because we're a BRCA1 family, and BRCA1 cancers tend to be very aggressive, from what the
Yes.
surgeons and oncologists told me. Even with a very aggressive cancer, they wanted a couple of weeks to get the pathology right, make sure they knew how they wanted to treat this for the best possible long-term outcome, because curveballs are moving slower than they appear. So,
I love that.
yeah. So let me stop and let you jump in.
That's amazing. That is just such a great way to look at life happening. You know, every time I have an interview like this, and I usually ask the question, what have you faced personally, professionally? You know, what was a traumatizing moment, or what was a moment that took you off guard? I always ask that question. And to hear someone that took those things and then made actually a metaphor out of them that is easily explainable to someone who is going through something different, that's
Mhm.
amazing to me. I
Yeah,
mean, that's just really amazing to me. And the whole curveball going slower means that that gives me permission to take that breath, like you said,
that's
that,
right.
you know, it's not going to happen to me right now. The bad thing, I see it coming, you know, how am I going to avoid it, or how am I going to deal with it if it does hit? That's
That's right.
amazing. I love it.
Well, and it will cross the plate, but
Yeah.
there's a few things in this metaphor. So when you're a batter,
Hmm.
you do get at least 3 strikes,
Yeah.
right? That's the way it works. So when you're a metaphorical batter,
Yeah.
sometimes you're going to see multiple curveballs. Cancer is a multiple curveball thing. Business is a multiple curveball thing.
Yes.
Life, life is multiple curveballs. So
Yes.
some of them you aren't going to hit great.
Mhm.
The great thing about having an approach is that you reset. You say, I did not hit that the way I wanted to. That did not go the way I'd hoped. What can I learn?
Mhm.
What adjustment do I want to make? Because I am confident another curveball is coming. In cancer, let's say you have chemotherapy. For me, chemotherapy was weekly,
Oh
right?
goodness.
Okay. It meant I got a less toxic dose every week. And by the way, my hair, this is only a year and a half past, so I didn't lose most of my hair. Yeah. So that's another myth of cancer. Sometimes you will, but there are things they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, insurance doesn't often cover them, but things they can do to keep you from losing your hair. And as a woman, I don't want to look in the mirror and not see myself, right?
Right. That's
Even,
probably one of the hardest things that I've heard. I have two friends going through cancer. One just finished all of her chemo, and so she has about 2 inches of hair now.
yeah,
And then the other one is literally in the middle of her round. And
right.
that was probably the hardest thing for her, was actually losing her hair.
It's very hard. And
Yeah.
if you can avoid it, that's wonderful. And if you can't, as your friend knows, it does grow back.
Yes.
And people joke like chemo hair is kind of funny because it grows back different and then somehow it reverts to where it was. It's kind of a crazy thing.
It's
But one of the things I recommend to people facing a curveball, and it's in my book, Crushing the Cancer Curveball, is to share with people what you're going through.
yeah.
And a lot of us are hesitant to do that. I hate pity. I mean, I can't
Oh,
tell you,
yeah.
Julie, how much I hate being pitied. I am competent. I am confident. I am independent. I am all of those things. So pity makes my skin crawl.
Yes.
And yet, I did tell lots of people. Now, part of it was I told people I was going to get a prophylactic bilateral mastectomy, and I was diagnosed the day before it. So a bunch of people thought I was having surgery on Tuesday, and
Oh,
on Monday I found out I wasn't. So
okay.
I was forced in a way to tell people, so something came up. But here's the thing. I told them, hey, this came up. I don't have a lot of answers. I'm okay. Here's what I need and here's what I don't. And I was
Yes.
very clear, right? If you want to support me, that's great. There'll be a list for meals, there'll be a list for all kinds of things, or send me a joke, send me an anecdote. People said to me, do you mind if I pray for you? I said, I'll take all the prayers I can get. That's all fine with me.
Absolutely. Yes.
Whatever. And what you have to realize is you're loved. And people want to express that they care about you and they love you. And they really struggle for how to do that because they're uncomfortable. And inevitably, everybody thinks, what if this was happening to me? And that's normal. I want to tell everybody, like, that is a normal reaction. You are not a bad person, a bad daughter, a bad friend to immediately say, God, that sucks. And oh my God, am I glad it's not me? Could it be me next? It could. One out of every two Americans is going to be diagnosed with cancer. You will know people,
Oh, yes.
right? And so, first, that's normal. Second, you don't want to give the cancer patient more work to do to figure out how to occupy you. So, if you read my book, chapter 19 is a list of things people can do for cancer patients. So you
Oh,
can actually
wow.
offer.
That's amazing. I'm getting your
Right,
book. I have to tell you,
right.
I'm getting your book.
Thank you. January 28th on Amazon, Crushing the
I'm
Cancer
definitely
Curveball.
getting it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
But what cancer patients need to know is when you tell people support comes from surprising places. So when I was diagnosed, I didn't have an oncologist because I was about to have prophylactic surgery. One doesn't have an oncologist. So the surgeon said, it's cancer. I said, an expletive. And then I said, can I get your recommendation for an oncologist? Then I called two or three other doctors that have treated me over the years. Who do you recommend as an oncologist? Then I told my network, this is going on. And by the way, I'm looking for a really great oncologist. And a woman who I knew, but I wasn't close with,
Yeah.
popped up and said, hey, my best friend is the chief strategy officer at UCSF. Let me see what I can do. Okay, great. And then another person, my sister, said, do you mind, can I call this person who's my friend, who's a donor, to another hospital and ask if he knows somebody? Because I had determined I wanted to go to UCSF because the doctors I'd spoken to kept saying, go to UCSF. And it turns out for genetic breast cancers, they have some specialization. Anyhow, within 24 hours, all signs pointed to the same oncologist, and multiple people were helping me get an appointment with her.
Wow.
People other than my sister that I didn't know well. So when I tell people this, they're like, well, but I don't have that kind of network. No, I had that kind of network. You don't know
Oh,
who
yeah, until you put it out there.
you don't. And you have to ask the universe for the help you need. I was specific. I want a breast oncologist at this hospital. Who do you know?
Mm-hmm.
48 hours later, I was in her office.
Wow.
Okay. Now, that's very lucky. You don't need to be there 48 hours. It could be 2 weeks. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The ball is moving slower than it appears. If I could have started chemo on Tuesday, I would have.
Yeah.
But they said, we need some more information. Sorry, kiddo. But it was good because I got a port, which meant my veins I wasn't getting
Mm.
poked all the time. I had time to get the cold cap, which protected my hair. I had time to set up the meal plan and driving and various people who wanted to fly out to help me because my husband travels for business and they wanted to be here if he wasn't, so that I wasn't alone. I mean, tremendous. And nobody carried excessive baggage.
Right.
Even my husband didn't have to carry excessive baggage because the load was shared. And I never felt so loved and supported in my life. Like, I wouldn't choose cancer, but that experience of being so loved, it's illuminating. And something else that I recommend to your listeners,
Uh-huh.
one of the things, again, I've seen the movie before, and my book is really to give people, this is the script of the movie. Like, I can't promise what the ending is because I have no idea. And I'm not going to tell you anything about treatment because I'm not an MD and you should not listen to me
Right,
about
right.
anything treatment oriented. There are 120 varieties of breast cancer alone.
Mm,
See an oncologist, preferably one that specializes in your kind of cancer. And if you can't, find a telehealth like at Memorial Sloan Kettering and get a second opinion from somebody who specializes in your cancer. It's
yes.
it's your life. Okay, but beyond that, what I did is I said, look, infusions, they're going to happen for me every week. Sometimes they're every other week. Sometimes they're every 3 weeks. When you have radiation, which I didn't, it's every day. So routines actually help us. So what I did was I created a routine for my infusion day, but I embedded in it what I'll call happiness tripwires. So, number one, do not tell a cancer patient to be strong, it'll be okay, just have a positive attitude. Do not give cancer patients work to do. That's
No.
not your job. Tell them you love them and you wish this wasn't happening and you'd like to do X. But a happiness tripwire, you can actually do without being asked. So I have a friend who sent me a text every infusion that just was emojis of kisses, right? My son, who was a freshman in college, the baseball player, the job I gave him was to write me a letter every infusion, and it was like virtual chocolate. I'd sit down, I'd have
Oh,
my labs, and then the first thing I could do is read my Google Doc letter from my college freshman about his life and about how
oh,
much he loves me. Like, who doesn't want a day like that?
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Right? And I had them happening all through my infusion day. So my infusion days were not miserable. And I had a great Benadryl induced nap. Let's be clear, that was also very nice. But, but they were not miserable because I embedded things that could make me smile, if only for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And there's an emerging body of research, scientific research, that those little releases of happiness actually support your immune system.
Yes.
So, I had another friend, he asked me, what can I do? I hate that you're going through this, but I live in Oregon. I live in
Mhm.
California. And I said to him, you're one of the funniest people I know. And I happen to know you have a very common last name, and you, for 10 years, have been replying to people who send you an email that's not meant for you. And they're funny because I've read them. Would you mind sending me one every day? And he did for
Oh
four
my
months.
goodness.
Right.
Wow.
Instant smile for at least
Yes.
5 minutes every day,
Oh, that's
right?
amazing.
So my point to people is there are people in your life who
Hmm.
maybe the way they help you with cancer is they send you a note or a funny joke, or if you're a prayerful person, like my rabbi sent me a prayer list that was on YouTube so I could listen to it musically. And that helped me. But if you're someone who worships differently and someone sends you a psalm or a prayer, that's okay too.
Oh yeah.
Whatever gives you just a moment of a smile. That's a
Uh,
wonderful
I
happiness trip.
I love happiness tripwires, and I love the fact that you created your own experience. You
Mhm.
didn't allow the experience to flatten you. You went in, you like you said, you set or you reset, and you created your own experience. I love that. That is amazing. That's just amazing.
Well, and I think that every patient
Hmm.
ends up doing that. And the difference is, do you do it at the onset or do you do it later? And look, some people are more flattened by the side effects. And I have a
Mm,
friend going through it now, and she's having a harder chemo than I had. And I remember she's like, I don't think I can get up to eat today. I'm tired. I said, can I send a DoorDash to your home? Or is there somebody who can walk in? Because why should you get off the couch? I
right.
think it's fine. Just stay on the couch. And she said, actually, I did order and it's coming. I was like, great. But okay, so today you're going to be tired. We don't have to be superwomen. Today you're going to be tired and you're going to need more help.
Yeah.
So ask for it. And hopefully tomorrow you won't be as tired, but if you are, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You will not be tired and exhausted every day for however many months or years you're going through treatment. And there's a secret. And I interviewed about 25 cancer survivors as part of my book research. And the secret is that cancer drops a filter on your life. And that filter helps you see what's important, who's important, and how you want to spend your time.
Yes.
Now, I would argue one should pause and consider those things without cancer, without a curveball, right? Like, but,
Right.
but one of the women, and she's a stage 4 thriver. Stage 4 means she has metastatic cancer and it will never go completely away. But today, medical science can actually manage that for a long time. And she said, after I was diagnosed and we got me to no active disease, I decided I was going to take my 3 kids, who range in age, by the way, from 19 to 1. And I was going to take my 3 kids, you're going to love this, Julie, to every state in the nation.
Yes.
This is my, and she said, before I had cancer, I kind of wanted to do that, but it wasn't a priority. And once I had cancer, I was like, no, I need to do this now. Well, it's been 3 years and she's at 28 states and they just get in the car and go, right? From California to wherever, or they
Oh,
pick a
that's amazing.
flight and they go. But it's a priority. This
Yeah.
time with her family, and I think the youngest is now 3. The time with the family, and they want to see all 50 states, and she's going to do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that sometimes it just takes that priority goal to keep you moving forward, regardless of what else is going on. I know that I'm going to have a grandbaby, my first grandbaby, in a
Congrats.
couple of months. And I just know that that is going to change a lot about my life. I just don't know quite how yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Mhm.
But just the thought of being able to be there for his college graduation, and and if when he falls in love, and all of this stuff, that's a goal that I'm living for right now. I just want to be able to see him thrive and live. This has
So,
been awesome. I have 3 questions that I ask at the end of every
great.
interview. Um, I'll ask you to close your eyes, and I'm going to describe, or I'm going to say a couple of words, and I'd like for you to tell me I want you to describe the picture that appears in your mind. Wise women.
My mother.
Mm, describe her a little bit. You can open your eyes now.
Oh, okay. So my mother, and interestingly, flanked by my 2 grandmothers.
Yeah.
Um, so my mother's had breast cancer twice, bladder cancer once. She is a fierce athlete, a great tennis player, golf player. And my mother doesn't have a victim bone in her body. She's like, I think cancer is going to take me apart piece by piece, but I ain't letting it take me out. And she is upbeat. She she's just light to be around.
Yeah.
And the wisdom of my mother is, my mother, you said something a moment ago. And when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, she had a modified radical mastectomy. And the first time there was no chemo or radiation.
Mhm.
And then she had what's called a local regional recurrence, which meant it was like on the scar line. So they figured it was just a cell that had been left over. But now they wanted to do chemo and radiation, and they did intensive. And I remember saying that this is prophylactic chemo. There's no sign of metastatic disease.
Yeah.
So, Elle Macpherson talked about how I didn't have any chemo to be healthy. Well, she was offered prophylactic chemo and she rejected it, which is okay. Like, that's a choice. But it
Hmm.
wasn't because she had metastatic disease. She didn't. She had stage 0 DCIS. It wasn't even invasive. But my
Yeah.
mother had an invasive cancer and no sign of metastatic disease and had this awful chemo. And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Oh, I said to the doctor, and the doctor agreed, I'm not playing for 5 years. My girls are 15 and 12. I want to see them get married. I want to see them have children. I want to see their children grow up. I want to see their children
Yes.
graduate from college. And if I can, I want to see my children's children get married and have children. So give me whatever you have to give me to get me the rest of my life."
Yes.
She's 77, right?
That's
She has been,
yay.
her eldest grandson graduated college last May. She was there. And she's not there like an old lady. She's there like a warrior,
Yes.
but not angry. Like
Yeah.
she could be angry, right? She lost
Yeah.
her breast at 36. Both of her daughters had breast cancer. She has what's called a neobladder. They rebuilt her bladder out of part of her small intestine. Like
Wow.
unbelievable. And afterwards, she went scuba diving. Not immediately afterwards, but like she could be angry. But her perspective is, why do I want to live my life angry? I got time that a lot of other people didn't get. My
Yeah.
responded to treatment, and I got time. I got to live this life. And
Yeah.
so I had gratitude. So the wisdom of gratitude, of taking action, and of staying healthy. You talked about how you felt about things I said. I didn't mention, like, I exercise fairly rigorously. I have for years. And throughout my chemo, I kept lifting weights. I kept riding the bike. I kept going for walks. I kept my body as
Mhm.
strong as it could be. And between that and the happiness triggers, by my 12th chemo cycle, my oncologist looked at my labs and said, I wouldn't think you're a cancer patient looking at your labs. Now, that's also the third part. I'm lucky. Like I have good genetics. But my mother was like, I'm strong. My sister had just done an Ironman before her first diagnosis. So we're all basically looking at the cancer and the treatment and going, bring it.
Bring it. Yeah. I love it. Oh, I love that. Two last questions. You ready for these?
Ready.
Where do you like to roam and what makes you restless?
So I actually took that college freshman on his gap year and we roamed with an RV through the national parks of Utah and Arizona.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought Mesa Verde, which is off the beaten path, is someplace everyone should roam and check out. I like to roam up to Montana, give me big sky and the mountains, but I like to roam over in Tennessee and Kentucky and the
Yeah.
beautiful rolling green hills of North Carolina. I think this country is amazing. And when I finished 7 weeks after my not prophylactic, my mastectomy and reconstruction, I took off for my F Cancer World Tour and we wandered upstate New York where our son played baseball. We wandered France. We
Oh,
wandered Texas.
nice.
I'm basically in the take a map, throw a dart, let's go.
Yes.
What
I
makes
love
me
it.
what makes me restless is
Uh-huh.
um, frankly not having something to do.
Mm,
I'm not good at sitting still. It's something I'm actually working on. That for me, action is therapeutic,
yes.
but sometimes action is premature. And sometimes the action isn't mine to take. This is really important as a parent to
Yes.
recognize my hands have to be off that wheel. They have to drive. And if I did my job, they're good drivers, but it's theirs to drive.
Right. And they're still going to make a mistake here and there that's
As
how
do
they're
I.
going to learn. It's how they're
Well,
going to
as do
learn.
I. I
Yep.
intend to be making mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, Julie, you're not trying anything new.
And yeah, and
Mistakes.
you're dying,
Well,
basically.
mistakes have to be learned. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to have a grandbaby. That grandbaby is going to fall on his bum so many times as he learns to walk, but that's not going to stop him from trying to walk.
No, absolutely not. Well, this has been phenomenal. I am going to get your book. You said it's coming out in January,
It is.
January 28th, you said,
January 28th. People can go to
on Amazon.
joellekaufmann.com. Yeah, they can go to joellekaufmann.com and they'll be able to keep track of what's happening with the book, read some early reviews. And I have a bunch of resources already available there. So if you're going through something with cancer and you want the workbook or you want some online interactive checklists, or even, we didn't talk about this and we don't have time, I have a financial calculator because overwhelmingly, cancer patients say the most stressful part is money. And
Yes.
it comes from most cancer patients, even ones who had an easy time like me, have to reduce the amount of time they work because treatment happens. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that has an economic impact. And my message to people, if they use the calculator or not, is the earlier you know that that curveball is headed towards you, there are lots of resources available to help minimize so that do not use your credit card to pay your rent. Like that's a bad option. There are others that don't make you homeless, that don't make you trying to figure out if you can eat. There are people who want to support and there are resources. So know when that curveball is
Yeah.
likely to show up so you can preempt it because that curveball really does hit you.
That's, I'm sure it does. I can't imagine. And I hope I never have to imagine facing a medical situation. You have no choice. You have, and eventually you have to pay some part of it. And it could bankrupt you very quickly.
It can. And with cancer, I mean, usually a lot of the treatment is covered, although people do need to know what their out of out of pocket max is, because they're going to hit it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then and then they need to know, um, do they have travel costs, childcare costs,
Hmm.
reduced income? So we put all of that into a simulator, not to scare people,
Hmm.
but so people have information. Information gives you power and choices. So
Yes.
if you go to joellekaufmann.com, all of that's available now. The book will be out at the end of January, but there's lots of resources for people before then.
Thank you so much. That's going to be so helpful for a lot of the folks that listen to my podcast. I really appreciate it.
I
Joelle, it's
hope so.
been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing your personal journey. It is words of wisdom out the wazoo today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie.
Julie Noonan here. Thank you so much for listening to Roaming with Restless Women. If you're a successful senior woman leader who would like to be on this program, please visit podcast.intuitivewisdomcoach.com. If you enjoyed this interview, please share this episode on social media and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they mean a lot to me, my team, and most importantly, my restless guests. As a special gift to you, our listeners, I offer a free one-on-one 15-minute breakthrough session. Bring a problem and experience how coaching works to see if it could be of value to you. Sign up for an available time on my website, intuitivewisdomcoach.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.